You're listening to Inside Lebo, a podcast giving you an inside look at Mount Lebanon, Pennsylvania, produced by Mount Lebanon's Public Information Office.
Hello and welcome to Inside Lebo. I'm your host, Assistant Municipal Manager and Municipal Planner Ian McMeans.
And I'm Assistant Public Information Officer and Senior and Online Editor Rachel Windsor.
So our podcast is titled Inside Lebo, but today we have a guest from outside Lebo. We have Dormont Borough Manager Ben Estelle, along with Mount Lebanon Finance Director Andrew McCreary, who is here for the fifth time on the show.
So welcome, Ben and Andrew, and thank you for joining us. And you guys are here to talk about a groundbreaking partnership between Mount Lebanon and Dormont that just won an award. And Ian, you were in Harrisburg for the ceremony, so why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll hear from you two about the program.
Sure, yes. Both of our communities together were fortunate enough to receive a Governor's Award for Local Government Excellence. So back in the middle of April, we went to Harrisburg for the awards ceremony, and we got a plaque for our accomplishments of the collaborative program that we started that's very unique in the local government world, that's caught the attention of DCED, the Department for Community and Economic Development across the state, and we've been talking with them about how to replicate the model of what we've done statewide. But I'll let the two stars of the show, Ben and Andrew, talk a bit more about what exactly we did to win the Governor's Award. So Ben, do you want to start kind of talking about where Dormont was and then where Mount Lebanon was able to come in and help?
Sure, absolutely. So Dormont was looking to fill its finance post, and we only have a single financial officer in the borough, and it is very difficult to find people in that position these days. And I have a lot of friends in municipal government, and spoke to Ian and some others, and he said, as a matter of fact, Andrew has been talking about this very thing. Let's get a conversation together. And so rather than look outside to bring a new employee in, we looked across the border to Mount Lebanon, which could offer more robust financial services to us at a lower cost than what an employee would bring to us.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is I believe the conversation went between Ian and I. There's no reason why Dormont, there were maybe some expletives in there. There's no reason why Dormont needs to hire someone full-time. We could totally do this. So in short order, we got that conversation together, which shows the strength of the community's partnership overall, not just in this area, but others. That the phone call was had pretty quickly after that, and we started moving. So that was September of 2022 that conversation started, and was right around budget time. So both of us had it in our budget to discuss with our elected officials, and I think everybody was on board budgetarily, and then we moved to agreements in January of 23 to button that up, make sure that everybody's protected, everybody's comfortable with the agreement and the how it's going to do it, and we'll go into that in a second, but how it was going to hopefully take shape, and we can go into that a little bit further later.
And you mentioned about the benefits to Dormont, obviously saving money versus a full-time employee. I'm assuming that what we've done from a collaborative local government effort is also much less expensive than what hiring a private company to run your financial operations would be too, because I know there's companies out there that'll do accounts payable, payroll stuff, but I know they cost an arm and a leg.
Certainly, and there's also the existing relationship. Dormont and Mount Lebanon collaborate on a number of things. Sometimes they're one-off issues that we work on together. Sometimes they're long-standing. So we know everybody here, and you all know us. We're very familiar with the communities, and one of the kind of ancillary benefits that we get is that we share many of the same vendors, and so those relationships are very easy to kind of bridge over with this relationship.
And unlike a private software company, we're not going to go out of business, and we're not going to get bought out by somebody else. So there's that
very
nice
true
stability there.
Yeah, there's a consistency to it, and that was Ben kind of took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, and that dovetails into our conversation here in a couple minutes. But we're all doing the same thing. There's nothing that Dormont's doing that we aren't doing as well. We have other stuff going on that maybe they don't, and maybe they have a few things that we don't do, like they'd run a Dormont Day. Right, we don't really do that, but how does that affect the finances side? It's a little bit different, but nothing that we couldn't parallel with something that we run here. So there's nothing that we're not unfamiliar with. And we've got a couple anecdotes we can give you of how this relationship's built, those things that can help them internally to make their processes more efficient.
Yeah, so I mean, Andrew, if you'd like to, go into a little bit more detail about exactly how the program is set up, that would be great.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that everyone, anybody that's listening to this, how this is the tenets we went into this relationship with. First and foremost, we are not touching Dormont's money in any way, shape, or form. We cannot release their money. We cannot do anything in their financial system without manager's approval. Sometimes there's commission approval or their council approval before funds are released. So there's multiple eyes. We're just the conduit to get to that point. So that's the first and foremost. Second is that there was in no way, shape, or form did we want to make this, hey, if this didn't work, which we're obviously here, so it's been working. But we want to make sure that both municipalities were protected as well. So everything we're setting up for Dormont, if they ever so choose to leave, right, and say, we want to do this on our own, that there'd be no hard feelings, right? Hey, we just want better local government. That's all I think we're all here for, is that everything that we're doing, they could give to somebody within the organization and branch off and go do it. There's nothing we're doing that's proprietary to us, which, getting back to the private sector, payrolls and accounts payable and all those things, these are their softwares. We're just running them. And we had the existing relationship with some of these softwares that they've then grown to like, right, and come to rely on. Well, if that relationship were ever to sever, they would still have those. So Dormont will always have these as long as they so choose, so on and so forth. So that's where that comes into play. And the other big point is we're not doing everything for Dormont, right? So we're doing what they need. They needed accounts payable help. They need some cash receipting help for electronic transactions. So those are big things like their parking meters. Guess what? They run the same parking meters we have. So I had processes built already to handle all of those. They have a recreation acceptance software that does cash check, e-check, credit card payments. I have templates built for that, so we were able to help with that as well. Bank reconciliations was another big one. We want to make sure all their cash is tied up and viewed by the manager and assistant manager in a timely fashion. We don't want these bank recs and to go longer than 10 to 15 days after month end. So we want to make sure those are all tied up. So those are the primary areas where we've concentrated in. We're now branching off here in the last quarter. In the first quarter of 2024, we've started helping them with after payroll processing. That's helping building redundancy. Something we haven't really covered yet is we're really trying to help them with redundancy. Is that if something happens to somebody and they happen to leave, you have somebody that's right here that's backing them up. We're a backstop for them, so that redundancy is there. You have multiple people that know what's going on and what the expectations are, so that yes, it can always happen that something gets missed, but we're trying to build the best redundancies we can so that it doesn't happen. So we've built those types of processes into this so far for what we're supporting. Something that Ben does a great job of is budgeting and GL monitoring, right, and budget to actuals and those types of things. That's something we don't really need to support them on. We said, hey, if you ever need our support, let us know. But at this point, we don't do that. That's reliant on them. So it's ultimately their books. It's not our books. And they need to be responsible for those, and they do a great job of that. If there's ever a need or a time that we need to do that, we'll bring that discussion back up. But at this point, we're good with what we're doing so far, and that's where we're at so far.
Yeah. If I could add, one of the big differences I see as a municipal manager between larger communities and smaller communities is capacity. Where Mount Lebanon might have 4 or 5 people in a department, we typically have 1 to 2. And so, anytime somebody leaves our organization, it is a much more difficult transition for us to make because there are not backstops in small communities. And that was one of the most attractive parts of this relationship, was that we wouldn't have one employee overseeing everything. We would have Mount Lebanon's finance department essentially as that backstop for it. Mm-hmm. And there were so many safeguards built into this that everybody felt comfortable moving forward. Andrew can't add a vendor for us. Something as simple as that has to be done by my staff, just to ensure that nobody could create the Fred Armisen Fund and then transfer some
the George Costanza Human Fund.
Yes. And that is all controlled by us, and then Mount Lebanon is also watching what is happening so that we make sure that taxpayer funds are protected as much as possible.
Yeah, and all those back ends are transparent. So one of the things we built is a transparency site for all of us, and I call it a transparency. It's a SharePoint site that we built so that not only can Dormont and us have talk back and forth with file sharing and all those different things. We do tasks, right? So I need you to do something. They being the manager or assistant manager, we need you to do something. We build those types of things in there. In addition, the auditors can see it. They have full access to it, so their auditors can go in and pull everything. So everything we're doing, we're uploading to this site, so it's a full transparency. And there's nothing that we're then housing that's not accessible to them. So that really, I think, builds that confidence that, hey, that everything's here. And as Ben mentioned, there are things that we just can't do. Number one being cash, but there are other things like we can't, vendors, employees, nothing, we can not do any of that in their system.
And so just one other follow-up question too. Obviously Ben mentioned that it was a cost reduction for Dormont. They saved some money, but this also does not cost the Mount Lebanon taxpayers anything.
It does not. And selfishly, as part of this, in hours not used by Dormont for an employee that we hired to do this, a part-time employee that we hired to do this. Shout out to Lisa. She's awesome.
Lisa's very awesome.
Yeah. So any hours that are not used for Dormont are then used by me. Right. So there are other things. We had our own turnover in our department that I was able to backfill with some of the hours that are there. They're not charged to Dormont, so still we're not costing the taxpayers anything. So it really does come back to a net gain for everybody. It also builds redundancy in my own department. Outside of Dormont, it also builds redundancy within my department because all the processes overlaid on Dormont for what we've built are the same things we do here, so that if, God forbid, anything were ever to happen, I have somebody I can pull in if I need to.
So we've added capacity to our finance department and been able to help out a neighboring community. It's a win-win all around, and we're very excited and grateful to Governor Shapiro and his staff at DCED to have been awarded with the Governor's Award for Local Government Excellence, which is a really cool feather in our cap to all of us for what we've been able to execute here in a very short amount of time. So congratulations to both of you on what you've done.
Thank you.
And so we're going to take a quick break, and then once we come back, we are going to talk a little bit more about the future of these sorts of programs in Mount Lebanon. And we are back with Inside Lebo. So, this program, we're expanding it, right, with Etna and Churchill. Could you tell us a little bit about how that sort of got started?
Yeah, word of mouth. I think Ben is part of a CONNECT program, which is the Congress of Neighboring Communities, which is really the first-ring suburbs of the city. That's Ben can expand on what that is.
We go a little bit beyond that. Now we've grown from its original makeup of those inner-ring suburbs. Basically, it's a group, almost a think tank of local governments who work on policy issues together and have started to now program more around those policies to have more efficient, better government.
Right. And so one of our council members or our commissioners was talking to Ben, talking to others, and the Etna borough manager got wind of it. And she said, "Hey, would you be considering expanding?" And I said, "Why not? Let's talk." So similar kind of conversations. I spoke directly with their council, their borough manager, their solicitor, anybody that wanted to listen or find out more information about what we're doing. At the same time, the former assistant manager at Dormont also worked at Churchill prior. So she mentioned it to their finance person at that point, finance officer / assistant borough manager. They use a third-party company for all of their and don't do municipal fund accounting. It's so they were interested immediately was some of the issues that they have. It made sense to bring two of them on of this size. Combined, they're probably the size of Dormont, so it made sense. And I think it's been nothing but positive. I think the council members at both Etna and Churchill have been supportive of what we're trying to do. I told them to reach out to Ben or other council members at Dormont, say, hey, go talk to them. I mean, you can hear it from me, but I don't know if they ever did reach out to them, but I was fully open with them. I said, hey, go talk to other people if you think you're interested in this. So we did, and we moved forward, and we signed agreements again in January of 24. We're just about to hit the ground running, have a lot of the prep work done, so we should be going live hopefully in or around May 1st for both boroughs, and we'll start doing the same thing there. The big difference with them is they're probably going to be more expansive than what Dormont had, but also the software, and not to get too much into the nitty-gritty, we're kind of tailoring it to making sure they're on all of our softwares, whereas the Dormont situation, cooperative, there's a slight difference with the software because they already had an existing software they liked. So we said, okay, if you don't like your software, we prefer you come over here to the software that we use. So that's kind of the bigger difference here. There's a little bit bigger lift on our end to get started. But we'll get that up off the ground. It shouldn't be difficult for us to do. It is a software I've been using for 18 years, so I should know how to do it. So it shouldn't be too bad. So we're excited about it. I think they're excited too. Again, a lot of the same things that Ben talked about is that they don't have the redundancy for it. They don't have the backstop for it, and quite frankly, overall, they're drinking out of a fire hose a lot of the time. Because they've got so many things to do. As Ben can probably attest, at a smaller community, you're kind of a magician of how you're going to get all this done. This is something that I can lay in that says here, and you can rely on this piece, take this off your burner, so if you ever need to come on and take a look at it around budget time, capital improvement plans, whatever it may be, we'll be here. But in the otherwise, we'll handle everything else that you need us to handle. So we'll work that in, and we're excited to get started. We hired somebody there as well, so they've started for us, and we're ready to roll.
Cool. And interestingly, to kind of draw the parallels between Dormont's situation and the Etna Churchill ones that you talked about too, that the program seems like it has benefits for both people or small municipalities who have internal finance officers and ones that are currently outsourcing that work to a private third-party vendor. That it seems like universally our program has appeal kind of regardless of the current situation that municipalities have.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, the Etna and Churchill are set up completely different. They're not the same right now. And we're going to be able to integrate both however they need it. We're here to support them. We're not here to take over. I just want to make sure that's clear. We're here to support and fit in where we need to. There's certain processes that will always be theirs. They will never be ours. That's okay. And if we ever need to switch or support in any different way, we certainly are there to help and advise. I had mentioned earlier about an anecdote. Dormont had gone through a period where they had outsourced their lifeguards and their pool, right? So the pool staff was outsourced. Well, they brought it back in last year. Well, one of the things that we were able to advise and help with was, well, how should we do all the cash collection, right? We're not so the assistant manager was able to reach out to me and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. We were able to, kind of get into a fishbowl, say, hey, you need to look here, you need to look here. And sure enough, we built a nice process that they have the internal controls, they have an approval. There's a trail to see from the moment you walk into the pool and pay, $10 cash to get into the pool, all the way to the deposit, there's a trail. And then there's an electronic trail, the cash trail, everything's there. And those are the types of things that they can rely on us for. But we're never doing that. Right, we're never posting that receipt. But we're there to advise and say, okay, now we understand that process, so that when we do a bank reconciliation, we know where to ask. But we're not doing any of those processes that will always be theirs. In no way, shape, or form will Mount Lebanon's finance department ever be handling cashiers at their pool, or paying their lifeguards. We're not doing that. That'll always be theirs, but we're there to help and advise for anything new or anything that they may need. So.
Great. And, this is obviously pretty innovative for the state. There's not really other communities that are doing it, especially on this level, and collaborating with local governments. So do you think that this is almost setting a new standard for innovation? And, where do you hope to see these programs going in the future?
It's absolutely a new standard. I've already been approached by a number of my colleagues across the state asking me about it. We ran into a number of other communities in Harrisburg whose manager spoke to me after the award ceremony wanting more information about the program. Some of them are on the Mount Lebanon side. They are the larger community who are looking at their neighbors saying, we should be able to do this. We can build that capacity in our own departments and help out our neighbors. And then some of them are on the Dormont side where they can get those redundancies built up for their own finances and work with a neighbor. The biggest issue I think that many face in local government across the state, probably across the nation, is trusting somebody else. Everyone is afraid of giving something up. What are we losing by doing this? And instead, they should be looking more towards the business world where we're saying, what relationships do I need with another corporation in order to better the product that I make? And we have an existing relationship. We have a great relationship. Dormont and Mount Lebanon work together far more than our residents recognize on many things. And so it's worthwhile for us to take advantage of those and set that example for other communities across the state. And they have certainly taken notice and are interested in learning more.
And I think, too, again, another word of mouth aspect was the Department of Community and Economic Development. So if you hear that DCED, we like using acronyms in the government world. I think we may trip up on that every now and then with people listening, that the DCED, that's what it stands for, Department of Community and Economic Development. They got wind through that Connect program and through one of our local reps. They were talking about it. Hey, this is happening. Oh, hey, what are you talking about? So they got wind of it. And so we brought them in and we said, hey, they've been monitoring the Dormont Mount Lebanon Cooperative. And as soon as we mentioned expansion, they're like, what? So they reached out to both communities, Etna and Churchill, and said, hey, we're able to carve out some funding for you. So they're able to get them a 50% grant for 2 years. And so we were able to move through that. Part of what our commitment to them was, this isn't necessarily in writing per se, but my commitment to them is, hey, follow this one too. Come write about it. Come white paper it. I don't care. Let's talk about this. If it can be a model for better government, let's do it. Because does it make sense to live at a larger municipality to smaller municipality relationship? Sure, it can make sense. But that doesn't mean it has to make sense that way all the time. There are other facets to local government that you could latch on to, whether it be a council of government, whether it be a county, and it could go to the state too. I mean, if they ever needed that type of thing to, some communities that may be struggling is take on this type of model for a couple years and then, release it back to that community, so on and so forth. So I just want to make sure that anybody that wants to learn about it, feel free. Ben and I are going to be presenting to some organizations here in the next month or so. Then we'll be at GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association of Pennsylvania. So that's in Hershey in May. We'll be presenting there as well to talk about what this is, and if anybody's ever interested, please reach out to us, and we'll be able to tell our story and see if it works for anybody else.
Amazing. Yeah, making local government better. That's really awesome that you guys started this program. So I think that's going to be it for this edition of Inside Lebo. But before we go, we wanted to present Andrew with a special gift. It's an Inside Lebo 5-Timers t-shirt to mark his 5th appearance on the podcast.
Yeah.
Similar to the Saturday Night Live 5-Timers jacket, just not, quite as flashy as the jacket they get.
Oh, My wife will be very happy with all of my holy T-shirts at home. She'll be very happy to have a new one to add to the arsenal. And no, one will not be thrown away. No, it will not be one for one. But yes, it'll be nice. Well, thank you, the Five Timers Club. Who else is in the Five Timers Club?
You're the only one.
Congratulations.
Oh, snap.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, and thanks everyone for joining us. We'll be back soon with another episode of Inside Lebo, which we are also happy to announce was just nominated for the Publisher Podcast Award for Best Local and Community Podcast. So we have all kinds of accolades that we've received lately, with the Governor's Award for the financial program, and then this nomination for the podcast. So pretty cool all around. Thanks everyone for your continued support of our show. And tune in next time for more Inside Lebo.
Thanks for listening to Inside Lebo, produced by Mount Lebanon's Public Information Office. Learn more about all things Lebo at mountlebanon.org or by following our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages.